Especially when you also start with the games by singing our national anthem, start playing now. The word is confusing. So, today our stage students, Erico and Armando, will sing with us. They have the words in their hands. This is the solemn celebration.
Or greet your neighbor. Hello, how are you? All right, today's invocation will be offered by Frank Relic.
Let us pray. Dear God, thank you for your many blessings beyond just our basic needs of food, shelter, health, and personal interactions. We have just finished a good meal, but there are many throughout the world that can't say that. They can't even say that they may survive the night, especially those caught in the war-torn areas of the world. Most can just say, help me. Dear God, we are grateful for the million-plus Rotarians that do and live the promise of the service above self. So for the next 30 seconds, let us all pray silently in our own way for those in need, for the Rotarians and others that are trying to help. 30 seconds starts now. Amen.
Thank you. All right, our microphone is hot today, so everyone can hear us, right? No problem. Perfect. All right, well, today is National Sons Day, and which was founded in 2018 by Jill Miko. She's the one that created National Sons Day, celebrating the importance and significance of our sons and those who raise them. While there's no single reason for selecting March 4th, the founder explains spring seemed ideal and the date resounds with momentum when spoken. So supposedly that there are slightly more sons born than there are daughters. So don't know if that's true or not. There is no statistics, but that's what I read. So that's what we got. So with that, I am going to just make a quick reminder before I turn this podium over about the Hearing Mission Foundation collection. this is gonna be a separate collection from the teapot, so if you're interested in participating in it, this is where, Dr. Figliano, is going over to Guatemala City. It's basically helping with, kids with impaired hearing and that, and so if you would, we're looking to have a collection of $300, to send over there, so if we can do that, that'd be awesome. They're not going over until April 7th through the 13th, so we have some time. So if you can't do it this week, if you want to continue the next couple weeks, that's fine. But if you want to leave a separate collection or bring it up to me, that's awesome. That'd be great. And then we'll be getting them to the Youngstown. I think that's where I need to send it to. So anyways, if you're interested, I just want to leave that so that way we can do that at the beginning and not at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Lynn. Secretary's report.
Thank you, President Courtney. It's an honor today to have two visiting Rotarians with us. First in the back, Doug Wills from the Dover Rotary Club. Welcome. And front, Janet Newcomer from the Medina Sunrise Club. We have two announcements. Flag maintenance is today, 4 to 6 p.m. Great weather, so I'm sure they'll keep the doors open. So hopefully some of you can join us for 4 to 6 p.m. flag maintenance. And this is the last Great Decisions program this Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Phil Mariola said he's seen a trailer of the film and thinks it will be worth seeing. It's called Director, Sound the Alarm. So thank you.
All right, Kimberly, it's your turn to shine. There you are. All right, Kimberly's going to give her classification talk. So with that, it's all yours.
Well, as you just heard, I am Kimberly Simons, and this is my classification talk. So I was not born in Worcester. I was born in Akron, Ohio, and I grew up in Brimfield, which is just south of Kent. I was involved in 4-H. We had horses and chickens and dogs and cats. It was your neighborhood zoo. Shortly after graduating from high school, I moved to Pittsburgh. Yes, I got out of Ohio. While there, I met this handsome man, Michael. We dated for about 6 weeks, and then he asked me to marry him. 7 months later, we were married with one caveat. He lived in Ohio. So that meant I moved back to Ohio, actually 10 minutes north of where my parents lived. We enjoy sailing and traveling and anything that has to do with our family. We just like being together. We have one son, and he is perfect. I'm kidding. He graduated from Wooster High School. He was in tennis and marching band. He is a graduate of Bowling Green State University with a degree in criminal justice. He is currently enrolled in the master's program at BGSU in computer science. Now, if he had listened to me, he would have done that first. Just saying. Anyhow, his focus is on software engineering. My daughter, Elisa, she is our non-traditional child. She knew early on what she wanted to do and has worked towards that goal ever since. She graduated from the University of North Carolina School of the Arts high school program. She is now at the University of Oklahoma, majoring in ballet performance and marketing. Early on in my career, my first job was with Cure SMA. SMA, or spinal muscular atrophy, is a genetic condition that causes muscle weakness and atrophy. I spent a great deal of time traveling to Washington, D.C. and educating policymakers on what SMA is and the importance of research into especially rare diseases. While I was working for Cure SMA, I was asked to join the National Organization for Rare Disorders Board of Directors. It was there that I met Dr. Sellner, who introduced me to the Wilson Disease Association. Wilson's disease is an inherited disorder that allows too much copper to accumulate in the body, most commonly in the liver. We established so many wonderful programs while I was with them. I wanted to pick out one program between Cure SMA and Wilson Disease Association, just to give you an example of what rare diseases go through. The Wilson Disease Association began a compassionate use program for patients in developing countries who did not have access to Wilson disease medications. One of the medications is zinc, something we can buy over the counter. In partnership with MAP International and pharmaceutical companies who supply these medications, the program continues today. It has helped patients in 37 different countries. So as you can imagine, that job was very busy. My husband was also very busy in his budding career. I think it was the third time we passed our children in the airport that we said, this just isn't working. I think we had an hour between our flights. Shortly after that, I resigned from Wilson Disease Association and earned the best title ever, stay-at-home mom. That's what I call my retirement years. I was a room mom, a band mom, a tennis mom, and oh gosh, a dance mom. I'm so sorry. I kept very, very busy. I was the chair of Scholastic Book Club. I was part of the Worcester Music Parents Association. I was the costume mistress with Ohio Conservatory of Ballet. And then they denominated me to be the president of Stavrova Youth Company, which was just, I'm not sure why. So after Eliza auditioned for the UNCSA program, she was accepted and obviously went down there. I was left with nothing. I was bored. I had lost my social circle. It became very clear I needed to find a job. A mutual friend introduced me to Jen Grimm, and she invited me to join the fundraising committee and the walk and 5K for wellness. To say the least, the rest is history. I have been with NAMI for 7 months now, and I absolutely love it. There's another slide. They have amazing programming and help so many people with mental health concerns. I don't think I need to go into great depth about all that NAMI does for our community. I hope you know about Mocha House, our support groups, our loss team, our CIT program. You support the CIT program, and we thank you. NAMI Wayne and Holmes County is on solid ground, and that is due largely to the leadership that Helen gave us all those years. Her compassion, her wisdom, her courage. That is why the organization is here today. She certainly leads, she passed the torch on to Jen Grimm, which was an absolutely brilliant move because Jen contains the same qualities that Helen does. And I'm sure that she will lead the organization in the same manner. I need to briefly mention, because I am the community development manager, that we do have this little event coming up, the Walk and 5K for Wellness. So if anybody would like to learn more about that, I sit at the back table and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Thank you for accepting me into Rotary, and I look forward to getting to know all of you.
All right, next up we have Don Noble.
Thank you, President Courtney. I asked her if I could speak just briefly on this little event called the Eclipse happening here in about a month or so. I was at the Wilderness Center a few weeks ago, and on your tables is this flyer that they produced. So I thought I'd give them full credit, but there's a lot of great websites. I thought I'd just tell you a little bit about what's going to be happening. And maybe I could give you some more, but if you're geeking out like I am over the eclipse, this is gonna be a great event. I was in 2017 in August, I took my family down to Bowling Green, Kentucky to watch the eclipse then, and it's an amazing event. You've never seen it. Has anybody here seen a total eclipse before? Couple, okay. It's like no other thing you've ever seen before. So I have a little presentation here. So yeah, the eclipse is Monday the 8th. Again, no Rotary meeting because we're all supposed to stay, you know, at work or at home. So, advance there. Most people have seen this diagram before. You got the sun, the moon, and the moon's shadow is what covers the earth. The umbra is the dark part that's going to come over Wooster, Ohio, and between here and Western Ohio. And the
penumbra is the shadow. It's not the total darkness, but that's pretty big. But the diameter of the moon umbra is about 62 to 100 miles in diameter. That's pretty amazing. I mean, to think of where the sun is and where the moon is comparatively, but and it changes shape due on where the sun is and the moon as it travels across in front of the sun. And here's a spot that it looks like from space. You see that dark spot? It's pretty wild. It'd be neat to see, from the space station. So here's the path it's going to take. It's coming up from Mexico, across Texas, through the Midwest and Ohio. And it's going to go. We're going to see part of it here in Cleveland and on up. So, but these are the times you need to mark down. If you haven't already noticed, but for Wooster, Ohio, they'll start. You see the little piece about 1:58 p.m. And then totality starts at 3:13 and 26 seconds. You probably wonder, how do I know that? Well, I'll show you. And totality will end at 3:16. So about 2.5 minutes. We're going to be in not total darkness, but it's dark evening, I guess is the best way to describe it. And then the total eclipse will end about 4:28. There's a great YouTube video. It's called Summit of the Grand Canyon Solar Eclipse. And in 2017, the eclipse went right over Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And there was, I don't know, probably 50 to 75 people that climbed up to the peak of the Grand Teton. If you've ever been out there and see, they started at 5 a.m. in the morning and climbed to that. And it was a great video. It's one of the most amazing videos I've ever seen. If you Google it or go on YouTube, you can see the eclipse coming across the plain. Because you're about 4,000 feet above the plane of the lower ground. And you can see that thing just coming across and then moving across. It's totally amazing. So I highly recommend checking it out. Many ways to view the eclipse. If you have a spaghetti strainer, you can take this outside and you can see on here, the little half moons you'll see on the eclipse as it goes across. If you have a little hole or something, have it on the ground or a piece of paper, but you can see it. You don't have to look at it directly, but just something like this they'll work. Of course, safety first. If you have some glasses, get them now. The prices are going up. I bought some for our United Titanium employees, and I've already checked the price, and they're almost double. I'm not too bad yet, but opportunity knocks. So make sure you wear your glasses anytime during when the sun is going across. Now, when it's totally eclipsed, you can actually look at it, but I wouldn't look at it very long. But you can see the solar arrays and everything. It's quite amazing. And then if I could get to escape, okay. There's two websites on here I really wanted to point out. The first one, here's the track again, and we can zoom in real quick. There we go. Now this might not work. The mouse up here? No, all right. It might not work. But one of these websites, this is the, there we go. If you can blow up a little bit more, but you can see the western and the eastern edge of the total eclipse, and the green line is the middle line. And it's near Forest, Ohio. I've looked at it, driving out to Indiana. I found out exactly where it's going to cross Route 30. So it's pretty cool. But the total eclipse is going to be about 4.5 minutes long. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, and then the other one. Oops, there we go. This is an actual video you can play, and I'll show you exactly where the eclipse is coming from across Mexico. And let's see, I'm going to fast forward just a little bit. But this is how I figured out exactly when Wooster, Ohio, the time it's going to happen. So you can see the umbra going across the country and where it's coming up on Fort Wayne. But anyway, just check out these websites. I thought it was really amazing stuff. It's going to be quite an experience. So with that, I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my kid's school just got canceled officially that day, so now it's official. So, next up, Alan Kiefer will be, introducing our speaker for today. No. Okay.
Our speaker today is Elisa Stoyle, Manager of Volunteer Services at Ohio's Life Care Hospice in Worcester. Elisa grew up in Western Canada and completed her bachelor's degree at the King's College in Edmonton, Alberta. After college, she lived and worked in several locations before moving to the United States with her English husband, Simon. Elisa and Simon live in Apple Creek. Elisa has had a hospice connection for more than 20 years and was made manager of volunteer services at Ohio's Life Care Hospice in Worcester about a year and a half ago. Hospice is near and dear to many of us in Rotary. Some have experienced care with loved ones, and others of us are volunteers. Today, Elisa is going to provide an introduction to hospice philosophy. It's my privilege to introduce Elisa Stoyle.
So I told Bob Gorman, when he asked me to speak a little bit about, or tell him a little bit about who I am, I said, well, really, we're keeping up the Commonwealth in the Apple Creek area. And an example of that would be that we went to our first high school game, and they started to play the music to Our Country, 'Tis of Thee. Well, for me, that's God Save the Queen. And so I stood up, and Simon was like, no, we're in the United States. And I remember thinking that was my first social faux pas coming into the United States. So we've been here since 2001. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the role that I have played in Life Care Hospice, but to talk a little bit about the organization itself, to give you a little bit of background as to who we are and what we do. And I would imagine that in this group, there are a number of you that had an experience with Life Care Hospice, either through a loved one that we've provided care for, or the friend of a loved one, or the husband of a volunteer. Right. So I don't think it's an unfamiliar organization, but I do think there's a lot of information out there that people don't know. And so that was the reason I thought I'd come and speak to you this afternoon a little bit. The name of the presentation is called It's All About Life. At Hospice, we have the wonderful privilege of investing ourselves in the work of adding life to the days of those for whom days can no longer be added to life. One of our previous executive directors, Carol McKiernan, always made it a point to emphasize that hospice is about life and not about death. And she did this not with the intent of disguising what it is that hospice does or to make more palatable that which was unpalatable in our society, but because she says dying is just one moment and the rest of it is living. The founding mother of the modern hospice movement, her name is Dame Cicely Saunders, is quoted as saying, "You matter until the last moment of your life." This is a fundamental tenet to the hospice philosophy that human life is important. We believe that it's a worthy endeavor to maximize the quality of life for every person it is our privilege to care for. Because life itself, whether it's short or long, productive or unproductive, difficult or easy, is precious. I want to go over a little bit of a brief history. We have been operating as Hospice of Wayne County since 1982, and it also started by a group of dedicated volunteers that saw this need of bringing compassionate quality end-of-life care to the people in this community. So we were known as Hospice of Wayne County. In 2004, we changed our name to Hospice and Palliative Care of Greater Wayne County to reflect the addition of the palliative medicine program.
which provides palliative care for chronically ill people. And we'll talk a little bit about that distinction as we go along further in the presentation. Hospice of Wadsworth Rittman asked to join with us. In 2011, Hospice of Holmes County attached themselves to us. And then eventually we changed our name to Life Care Hospice. And that was really because when you picked up the phone, you would get, "Hi, this is Hospice of Greater Wayne County," including the services of Wadsworth Rittman, and those of Holmes County didn't roll off the tongue. So we decided to come up with something that was a bit more simple. Life Care Hospice served its first patient in what we call the inpatient unit in March of 2015. And if you've ever been to our campus, it is a 12-bed facility that sits behind the administrative building that you see when you drive in. And that is a 12-bed facility unit that serves people that mainly are dealing with symptoms that we cannot manage at home. But again, I'll talk a little bit more about all of that. In 2017, Life Care became part of a larger not-for-profit hospice organization and was known now as Ohio's Hospice Life Care. Then most recently, actually in January of this year, Community Hospice joined, and we are now referred to as Ohio's Hospice, serving the Northeast region. But you're going to know us as Life Care. This is where we operate. This is the area that we serve. Combined right now, today, we have 420 patients that are under our care. We have 165 active volunteers in the Life Care program, and they contribute to 16.8% of what we call direct patient contact. So we've talked a little bit about the history of hospice, but I want to talk a little bit now about what is hospice. What is hospice about? For us, hospice is about life. Our goal is to enhance the quality of life for all our patients so that they may live as fully as possible into the last moment of their lives. In order to accomplish this goal, we have a staff of professionals and volunteers that have honed their skills in relieving suffering, any kind of suffering that may go along with a diagnosis of what we call a terminal disease, whether that be pain of the body, pain of the heart, or pain of the spirit. Hospice is about choices. We have many experts and professionals on our team, but we believe that really the only expert in somebody's care is the person themselves. We listen and offer suggestion based on years of experience, but the decisions have to belong to the person who lives with them. Let me give you an example. Say you're in hospice and you now have to be in a hospital bed. You may want to have that hospital bed right in your living room because you're a social person. That's your choice. You may want your hospital bed facing out so that you can see the outdoors. My husband would want it in the back bedroom with the door closed. Those are his choices. That's what we're talking about when I say the person has a choice. We believe that hospice is about a family. When a person receives a diagnosis of a terminal disease, the whole family is impacted. This means not only the patient deserves support, but all the people who the patient loves and who is loved by need and deserve that support as well. So we bring hospice care into that patient in their home, whether that home is a private home, an apartment, room, a nursing facility. We do our best to support whoever that patient calls family. We also know that we understand that the family's needs do not end at the time of death. So we continue to provide support to the family for about a year after the patient's died. And this time of bereavement is critical. We do whatever we can to provide the care that will allow this sad time also to be a time of healing. When somebody receives a diagnosis of a terminal illness, more than their body may be suffering. Such a prognosis may affect every part of their lives. Physical care, of course, is essential because until pain and symptoms are controlled, they overwhelm everything else. If you have a sore arm, say for instance, you have a toothache, anything that is outside of that arena takes the back seat because you're so consumed with how you feel, how that pain is. It's the same when you are painful with a terminal disease. But as one faces the loss of their life, there are many emotional issues that come to the fore. We deal with sadness and anger, depression, shock, fear. All are natural responses to the news that we have a life-limited expectation. Relationship issues often become very important when the news of a terminal illness is received. Some friendships may end as friends retreat out of their fear or confusion. If family members are estranged, a terminal prognosis may involve everybody to get together and reconcile. In most situations, we see that patients are either very lonely or they are overwhelmed with too many social contacts. In any of these cases, they may need guidance and support. The diagnosis of a terminal illness can also create a spiritual crisis. Questions of life after death, meaning, regret, fear, forgiveness, hope, all become very important to someone who has been told that they only have months or weeks to live. And I want to give you an example. And I have a wonderful example that is sitting right beside me. So Alan Kiefer is a volunteer, and his role with us recently has been that he drives the wheelchair van. We have a van that is accessible to our patients that cannot, say for instance, use a car to get to and from where they need to be. And we had a patient, or we have a patient who is under our care. And we also had her daughter who was under our care. That daughter was dying. And the patient, the mother of that patient, wanted to see her. Of course she did. But they were in two different facilities. How do we get her there? I call up Alan and I say, Alan, what are you doing on Monday morning? So he picks her up and he transports her to that facility. And then in the afternoon, he comes and picks her up and brings her home. But you can see how that's not just a transportation, is it? Because the conversation that ensues in that van is also the support that we offer in the volunteer program. It's what they get trained to do. It's the companionship. It's the support that is offered. So I'm not sure if you knew, but you were nominated as the volunteer of the month last month.
Aww.
So we can go around. So there were a couple of guys that this is what they choose to do. They drive that wheelchair van, but we have volunteers that assist in all areas. There are some that do administrative work. There are those that are involved specifically in bereavement. Some only work with four-legged creatures. But companion and respite are really the largest group of volunteers that we work with. Palliative. Palliative care is what is known as comfort care. Palliative care in the hospice context is not intended to provide curative treatment, but rather to manage symptoms, relieve pain and discomfort, and meet the emotional, social, and spiritual needs of the patient. Palliative care can involve the physical, the psychological, and the educational elements. The first time that I heard the word palliative was when one of my family members had what they call palliative surgery. He had surgery what was designed to eliminate, not to design to eliminate his disease, but it was designed to relieve some of the pain that he was experiencing. He had cancer and he had a tumor on his spine that was creating a lot of pressure and created a lot of pain for him. The removal of that tumor was not going to cure him. He had a terminal diagnosis, but it relieved that pain. We call that palliative care. Many interventions are used in therapeutic care, such as surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and those are sometimes appropriate palliative measures as well. Palliative care on its own, outside of hospice, is available to patients that are suffering from what we call chronic illness. We have a palliative program that stands alone from hospice care. So it can be looked at like this. All dogs are animals, but not all animals are dogs. All hospice care is palliative care, but not all palliative care is hospice care. At hospice, we have a mission statement, and this desire, can you read that? I can read it out to you too. It says, enhance the quality of life for patients and their families by providing them with compassionate care, support, and grief services during times of serious illness and loss. This desire, this hope is what Life Care Hospice continues to walk towards in the daily care that it provides to the patients that we serve in our community. It is what motivates the team of physicians and social workers and spiritual care professionals, administrative staff, and volunteers to show up. Who qualifies for hospice care? This is not a precise measurement. This is a general belief on the part of the patient's referring physician that if this patient's disease process continues as it has been, that person's life expectancy is going to be 6 months or less. Some diseases, such as cancers, are easier to predict, but pulmonary disease or heart disease, diseases of the nervous system, are less predictable. So hospice provides a guideline to make it easier for physicians to estimate when the time is right to refer to hospice. The conversation about limited life expectancy should be carried out by the patient's physicians. If a patient has dementia or for some other reason is incapable of understanding hospice philosophy, their family members can make that decision. But we never provide services to someone who simply has not had that hospice philosophy explained to them. Our patients know what hospice is, and they choose our care. Where does hospice happen? Under the hospice Medicare benefit, there are 4 levels of care. By a great majority, most of that care falls under a category of what we call routine home care. And routine home care is simply the care that goes on a regular basis, wherever that location is, wherever that patient calls home, a private home, a nursing home, or an assisted living. In some instances, hospice patients being cared for at home may develop symptoms that can be best handled in what we call that IPU setting. In that case, they remain under the care of hospice, but are moved towards the inpatient setting until those symptoms can be brought under control. And currently we have 2 inpatient facilities that are useful to us. So we have the Galt inpatient unit, that's the one on the Wooster campus. And now since we have joined community hospice, we have the Truman House, which is located in New Philadelphia. How does hospice get paid for? By a large majority, most of our patients are Medicare patients, and their level of care is described as earlier, and their criteria for admission follows the guidelines under which we operate. Per diem means that hospice is reimbursed for every day of patient care we provide. And out of that reimbursement, we pay not only for our services, but also for the medical equipment, the medications that are needed to manage that patient's pain and symptoms and to keep them comfortable. And I just want to pause here because this is noteworthy. Life Care Hospice is what we call a not-for-profit hospice. There are for-profit hospices. There are many for-profit hospices in our area. They will also receive that per diem reimbursement. When you are under a not-for-profit hospice, I think we look at the whole person. We're looking at the spiritual and the emotional and the social, like I mentioned. And so we have programs like the volunteer program. We have the bereavement program. We have social workers that go out to visit. These are all services that are not necessarily paid for, but we feel are important and vital to who that patient is. And so those services are offered under that not-for-profit umbrella. A for-profit hospice, of course, looks at it from a different perspective. They are going to utilize that money and try to make money off of what they can do in terms of providing hospice services. You probably won't get a volunteer program. It's unlikely bereavement is offered to you. And the other services are going to be cut down at a reduced level. So those are key components. Those are big words that we have to remember. When we talk about Life Care Hospice, it is a not-for-profit hospice that you're dealing with. The other surprising thing that I learned about the Medicare hospice benefit was that it required 5% of all patient care to be contributed by the volunteers. And as you heard earlier, Life Care operates at 16.8%. That is reflective of the community that we live in. Truly, I can tell you that I work with these people every day, and it amazes me who walks through the door and the level of commitment that we get. I'm proud of them. We have a wonderful, wonderful volunteer program. My hope is to expand a little bit on what we call the veteran program. And I want to give you another example. We had a patient that was living in Dalton Stoughton, who was a World War II veteran. And he was living at home with one of his kids. And at one point, he became more restless, a little disturbed in his mind. And the kids wondered if it had something to do with his military history. And so they asked if we could find a volunteer veteran to sit with him. Now, it just so happened, like it often does, that we had a volunteer veteran also living in Dalton, who was also a World War I veteran, who lived about 10 miles away. And he agreed to make a visit. He showed up, and the two of them almost instantaneously had a bond. They went and they did this holy huddle, the two of them, and they were like that for about an hour. And what was said, I have no idea. But what we later discovered was that they were in the Battle of the Bulge together, almost only 400 yards from each other. How does that happen? But I can tell you that connection relieved that man's restlessness. It relieved that agitation in a way that I couldn't do as a civilian. There is a specific and a special role that a veteran can play. And so we really are trying to promote that aspect of the care that we are providing. You know, there are words like war and occupation, liberation that bring about really strong feelings and really strong emotions. And I think the word hospice does the same thing. When one is given a terminal diagnosis and the doctor says there is no medical cure, the word hospice instigates intense feelings and intense emotions. And we at Life Care are working on making that word a little less scary, less intimidating, to have people start to see that the concept of hospice means quality of life right to the end of life. I have time for one more story. Most importantly, the impact of volunteers in hospice is the enhancement of the quality of life for patients and families that they serve. And I'm going to tell you a personal story because I started out as a volunteer in the hospice program. And we had a patient that was in one of the local nursing facilities, and she landed up here without any family. I think she had a nephew. And so she was under the care of that facility. And because she was so far into her dementia, a lot of the staff thought she was deaf. And they treated her as such when they provided that care to her. So when it was appropriate for her to come under hospice care, I became her volunteer. And usually when you sign on to a volunteer and you get a patient assignment, you get a little bit of information on who that patient is. And I came to discover that she had a history in music. At the time, we had a harpist. So she came out to play, and we wheeled Mary out into that lobby, and she started to play that harp. And that woman started to keep the beat on her wheelchair, just like that. And all of a sudden, we all knew that somebody was inside, that there was a person that was inside that needed care and needed a level of care that was maybe not being provided before. It was extremely moving. And these are the things that we get to be involved with. This is the kind of compassionate companionship visit that I'm talking about. So, in conclusion, when hospice is working well, it can almost be invisible to outsiders. Our team is working towards being a support so that the family and the caregiver are able to keep going, keep being that person who takes care of them, keeps that patient in the home if that is their goal. It is not about hospice. We who are part of the hospice team consciously remember this. And we ask you to remember that death is only a moment in time, a moment none of us here now can describe, but all the rest of it is living. Our goal is really to help people, not to help people die, but to help them live as fully as possible until the last moment of their death. It is all about life. Thank you. I understand that you would like, if you can, ask any questions for me.
If a person is not eligible for Medicare, services covered by other types of insurance.
Yeah, very good question. So we would not turn anybody away who wants hospice care. If, say, for instance, like the Amish community, would be a great example of one that, of a community that still gets hospice care. So we have, what we call the Amish Care Fund, which is money that is raised specifically for the plain peoples. And they draw upon that as their resource for payment. We still do fundraisers. We still have activities like that that generate funds for people who cannot pay, but we will not turn anybody away.
Thanks for being here, and someone who's utilized the resources of inpatient as well as home. I cannot say enough about life care and the impact our community. But I wanted to ask, through utilizing hospice, I found out how many resources are available. And, you know, the simple thing of having the blue book for an understanding of death and what that entails for someone. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about whether a family member is in hospice or not, or whether you're thinking about it, what resources are there?
Well, I think because when you step into, I think I'm understanding your question. When you step into hospice, you're asking for a whole group of people to come in to support you. And so say, for instance, your need as a caregiver in the home is focused a lot on bereavement. You have somebody that is say, for instance, suffering from Alzheimer's, and there's some anticipatory grief that goes along with all of that. So they help you with that. They provide those resources. If your biggest struggle is to provide personal care for your loved one, there are all sorts of resources that the social workers can utilize. We have our personal care specialists that we use. Of course we do, but sometimes they only can go in one to two times a week. And you may need more than that. So you may need help with sorting out your finances, or how does it look when the time of death comes? How do I organize all of that? But that little blue book that you're referring to is a very unique thing that we offer. It's called the blue book because it looks like a blue book, but in it, it shows and talks about really the expectations of what you'll see in those last 7 days of life. And it's a valuable resource that we have utilized for years. And I have one at home and refer to it. So I hope that is what you were talking about. Sure. You mean like our website, or? Yes, we do. So if you're going to look us up, you're going to look us up under Ohio's Hospice, and then there's going to be a category that says life care. And if you click on that, you will see all of the links to those resources that are there as a service that we provide, including volunteers. Well, I'm just going to call out Frank because his wife Candy is a volunteer with us. And she currently has an assignment, and I think Frank has met this individual as well, right? Because she wanted to go shopping, she wanted to eat at Longhorn. You know, these were big things for her. And so Frank had a meal. Did you get a meal out of it, Frank? Yeah, right. But this is, what was that?
Not light.
No, she's not light. But Candy offers her companionship. You know, she's an elderly woman who's in a facility, and it's lonely. It's a lonely life. And she complains, but it doesn't matter because Candy just listens to her and offers her that support. It's a lovely assignment.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate listening. Right. Well, just like Jill, I've my family's had to utilize some of the resources from Life Care, and I've been very pleased in-home out in the facility. And my father-in-law was the first one, and that little blue book was a lifesaver. And definitely got us through and knowing what was to come. So it was definitely useful. So, but in appreciation of your time with us today, we'd like to present you with this rendition of the Rotary wheel with the four-way test on the back. This is made locally by the students of the Village Network. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, I got some announcements for us. Next week's meeting is with Dr. Greg from Greg Orthodontics. So he's gonna be here with us. And then remember this Thursday, we have our the wine and bourbon tasting at Greystone from 6 to 8, right? Right, Bill? Okay, wait, at Greystone from 6 to 8. So come, it'll be a great time. We're looking forward to it. Also, March 25th is our offsite meeting at the Wooster Brush. In this week's email, there was a sign up. The cooks are asking us to kind of pick what kind of wrap or salad we want. So if you can go on to that email and click and sign up for what you want. I need to get that to them next week. So it will be in the email again next week. But if you also don't want to do that or not comfortable, I'll have a sign up sheet next week. You can come see me and let me know what kind of salad or wrap you would like. And then the Every Rotarian Every Year, if you have that, bring that up. We'd love to get that finalized. And then again, the Hearing Mission Foundation collection as well. I think I got everything for announcements this week. So with that, I think we stand adjourned. We'll see you next week. Thank you.